Horror Minute is rated R. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is also rated R. We're going to spend this time discussing the movie in gory detail, and along the road we will talk about some adult content and use some of our favorite swear words.
Fitta, helvete, fan, jävla tiska.
Consider yourselves warned.
Welcome to Rocky Horror Minute, the podcast where we discuss the Rocky Horror Picture Show one excruciating minute at a time. I am one of your hosts, Kelly.
And I'm your other host, Leandra. And of course, today we are joined with Eric Deutsch. He was not with us in the last minute, so welcome back.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. We're entering what a wacky room we're going into this minute.
absolutely. So, Leandra, did you want to tell us what happens in minute 21?
What if I said no?
Oh, well, that's the end of the show. Well, that's the show.
All right. So this is going into the first course of the time warp, and then you get into the first, I'd say, quarter of Magenta's verse. And the lyrics go, Riff Raff says, drinking those moments when the blackness would hit me and the void would be calling. And at that point, Brad and Janet run through a door. Riff and Magenta are right behind them. They kick the door open for them. And then you see all of these Transylvanians, and they turn to Brad, Janet, Riff, Magenta, and they say, let's do the time warp again. Let's do the time warp again. We then cut to another scene of the criminologist. He pulls down a dance chart, and he indicates that it's just a jump to the left, and then the Transylvanians sing, and then a step to the right. Criminologist is back on the screen and says, with your hands on your hips, goes back to the Transylvanians. You bring your knees in tight, but it's the pelvic thrust that really drives you insane. Let's do the time warp again. Let's do the time warp again. And then Magenta, who in this version, this is more spoken word, but I've heard plenty of versions of this song where Magenta actually sings this. She starts with, it's so dreamy, oh fantasy free me, so you can't see me.
Yes, and she'll finish her solo in the next minute. How are we feeling about this minute, guys?
So she's all fantasy free me.
Yeah.
I thought for the last 30 years was all fallacy free me, which doesn't really make sense. But that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, fantasy free me doesn't make a ton of sense either, if we're being honest. But so, I mean, sorry, Richard O'Brien, who I know is a devoted listener of the show. But there's a lot of lines that I misheard for years and years and years, and only very relatively recently found out what they actually are. And some are still hotly debated by fans, and the real answer is unknown.
I don't know that I can think of any of those off the top of my head. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Do you not remember the passionate argument that we were once embroiled in, not with a bunch of other people about, but maybe the rain is really to blame?
Oh.
That's one.
No, I don't remember this conversation, but I have a terrible memory.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss. I have strong feelings about it, so we'll discuss it in the future.
Fantastic. Will you do that with somebody who isn't a goldfish as far as memory? Because
No,
otherwise we're going to have a great time.
Yeah, you're my co-host. We do have a guest for that minute who maybe will also have strong feelings. I don't know. But anyway, I also love it, and especially as a Magenta and a Magenta lover, this solo that starts in this minute is her big banner scene. So it's really exciting. It's where she gets the most spotlight probably in the movie, I would say.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
At least until the end, when she's talking about her exciting return to her beloved home planet.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah, you don't know yet. They're aliens.
Right. So I also just wanted to comment that Richard O'Brien's movement in this minute in particular is so great to me. All the different creepy dance moves he's doing as he goes around that column
It's the elevator.
thing. Oh, it's the elevator. Well, yeah, it's the elevator. But he goes around it and is kind of doing all these like lurking motions and like thriller motions and kicks and things like that. I guess we have to. Who's the choreographer again? Do you remember off the top of your head?
The dances were staged by David Taguri.
Yes. Well, I just want to give him a shout out because I think that his work in this minute is particularly great. So this is the first minute also where we see the iconic elbow sex.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different thoughts on what that's supposed to be. I know that Patricia Quinn and Richard O'Brien have kind of gone back and forth about what the elbow sex is supposed to represent, and I think we can talk about that in greater detail when we have a little bit less content in a minute. Just prepping you for an exciting thing to be prepared for in a future minute.
Damn, I don't get to discuss elbow sex?
No, of course
You can still discuss
yeah,
it.
no,
and I'm such an expert on it, so
You're a sexpert?
The Richard O'Brien and Patricia Quinn commentary for this minute, they talk about it, and at least in the commentary, they just go, "Oh yeah, well, we were trying to think of something that could be our special weird Transylvanian symbol that kind of signaled that we were aliens, and this is what we came up with."
I will say I was marching in the DC Pride Parade as Magenta, and when people walked by, or rather when I walked by people, they were absolutely delighted to see a bunch of Rocky shadow casters, and they went, "Magenta, I love you. This is so great. Oh wow, I'm very drunk." And what Riff and I did was we just decided to do elbow sex every 50 feet or so, and the crowd always went wild. So it's very iconically a thing that they do.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of notes about the stuff going on in the background, as per usual.
Yep.
On the wall next to the elevator, there's a fireplace and a hearth, and on that mantle there are several white porcelain dog statues for reasons yet unknown. There are also a couple of chairs in that elevator room. It looks like it's actually a pretty comfy room. I would love to just kind of lounge there and look at dog statues. And then when we open the doors, we see all of the Transylvanians for the first time. And when we get into scenes where we're just kind of watching people watch somebody getting created for the first time, I think that we will have a little bit more time to dig into every single one of the
Yeah.
Transylvanian costumes. I will say Sue Blaine did a fantastic job of making all of them unique but still similar. All of the Transylvanians are wearing uh, black suits, usually tailcoats, black pants, white socks, and heels. Male Transylvanians are wearing black heels with white socks, and female Transylvanians are wearing black heels with peep toes and white socks. Everything's brightly colored. It's just very fun to look and try and find little details. A fair number of them have armbands with the lightning bolt emblem.
Leandra, you had done some research that indicated that a change was made in production of the movie that greatly altered the Transylvanian reveal.
Yes, originally Sue Blaine was under the impression, because this was what was told to her, that up until the Let's Do the Time Warp Again, that very first one where they break through the doors, everything was going to be in black and white.
Yeah.
So this was supposed to be and was styled to have the greatest impact the first time that we see color in the film. And of course, once they get into production, they're like, that's one of those high concept, low execution sorts of things. So let's not.
I think it would have been great, personally. I wish they'd done it.
And there are definitely some kind of pirated cuts where they do that.
Yeah, because I think and that would make all of the pops of color in the costumes stand out all the more.
Other things in the background, in the dance hall, you see a lot of weird things. There's a water cooler. We'll see that when Frankenfurter plays with it later on, but this is the first time that you notice that it's filled with wine. There's this kind of urban legend, and as you're going through this, you can look and see if you can confirm that they had an Easter egg hunt in this room, and they forgot to pick up some of the Easter eggs, and supposedly that is where the term an Easter egg comes in
Oh wow.
when you're talking about blink and you'll miss it little details.
Really?
Yes,
That's news
that
to
is
me.
that is the urban legend. I have not been able to confirm that that is actually a thing, but one of the ones that people go like, "Oh yeah, well look there, under the throne, there is something that looks like a very ornate egg, and then there are a couple of things like under the palm trees that look like eggs, and people are like, it's there." And honestly, as far as tinfoil conspiracies, this is probably less weird than saying that one of the Transylvanians, Perry Bedden, is a serial killer who kills people in the woods.
Yeah, but if he's not, then what happened to Oscar?
And what will happen to Eric?
Yeah, exactly. um, that is something I've never heard, and that is huge revelation if it's true. I mean, I do we believe this?
I don't.
No, I
I
don't either.
don't. No,
To
I
I don't
don't.
to me, the term Easter egg is very intuitive and doesn't really need an origin story to make sense. So I feel, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh,
But
absolutely. Yeah, I don't think that this is true necessarily. I just think that this is absolutely a thing that people in the Rocky community over the span of 45 years have gone like, "Hey, this is a true statement." And then somebody goes, "Really? I don't think it is." And then they go, "Eh."
Yeah, like it sounds to me like one of those things pre-internet days in like the 80s and 90s that a friend of yours would tell you, and since there was no internet to check it, you would say, well, it's got to be true because where else would he have heard that from?
right.
It
And
just sounds made up. It doesn't just like, oh, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The set was so crazy. They had an Easter egg hunt, and they forgot that the eggs were there. They filmed it anyway, and it just sounds really out there.
Yeah,
yeah, and
absolutely.
that's not even like the weirdest urban legend that comes out of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Some of the things that are urban legends, of course, come from a place of truth, like the fact that there are certain people in the cast that were boning. Not all of them were, but they certainly
Yeah.
that number has kind of expanded over the years. Uh, the the thing that I love slash hate about doing research on the Rocky Horror Picture Show is my research involves a series of books that have been published and different things from old message boards and also fanzines. There's just a lot of stuff where I go, okay, so in 1998, this person said on the Google group that this thing
Hmm.
happened. Can we confirm it? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's like endless forum arguments that I have to read through from like the early 2000s, and a lot of times it's a dead end.
I was part of those.
Oh, I
LiveJournal
know.
was so fun.
Yeah, I wish a lot of great things were lost when LiveJournal went down, including a lot of Rocky Horror like spaces.
Yeah. Thankfully, I know a lot of the people who created the content that I miss, so I can at least ask them for their originals, and they go, "Yeah," or "No, fuck you." And I go, "Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine." So another thing, just talking about the dance itself, the time warp dance is very, 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 very easy, except for the fact that if you're doing it screen accurately, there are lots of random things that you have to remember. And over the 15-ish years that I've done Rocky, I've gone through and just double checked my choreography several times just to make sure that what I'm saying is what I still think is true. And it's always fun. I I often forget that other people who aren't actually watching the film or aren't actually planning on joining a shadow cast don't want to know every single piece of that choreography. So
Mm.
somebody will be like, "Oh, teach me how to do the time warp." And then the more detail I give, the more life just kind of drains out of their eyes.
Yeah. I had it in my notes too. The Transylvanian choreography for Time Warp is way, way more complicated and hard to remember than anyone would ever think. I mean, like when I first started learning it to be in the show, it's because I'm choreography is like my weakest area anyway. I don't know why I have a hard time remembering dance moves, but
Also driving.
okay. Any others, Leandra?
Uh, you know what? This is not Kelly's
Yeah,
problems minute.
yeah, and I mean we only have so much time, but the fact that they do something different every time they do anything, besides the jump to the left, step to the right, etc., but they do slightly different things every time, whether it be like the wave thing they do or the jumps to the side or little hops. They do all kinds of different things, and you have to remember not only what they're doing but in what order. It's hard for me.
Back for the 40th anniversary, I was invited on DC Morning. Good Morning DC, that's what it was. It was a Fox affiliate news morning thing, and I was invited on to teach the anchors and Aaron Carter the time warp. And there's a video of it, and it's somewhat cringy because I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna bring tailcoats for everybody, and they're like, oh, are these dry cleaned? And I'm like, sure. And the answer is always no. If
No.
if I'm giving you a tailcoat, it has the sweat of 5,000 people,
Ugh.
and you're just gonna have to be okay with that, or get your own. But these were actually, I picked these because they were the least kind of stinky.
Yeah.
And I gave them to the anchors and to Aaron Carter, who was in town for some sort of concert that he was holding. And I very proudly on live TV told them that time warp was super easy. It's literally in the music, in the lyrics. You do the jump to the left and then the step to the right and put your hands on your hips and bring your knees in tight and then do some pelvic thrusting and it will drive you crazy. And then you do all of that again. And then they said, "Cool, all right. So now we're gonna play it with the music,
No.
and let's
No.
see how it goes." And I'm like, "Oh no, you probably wanted to
Oh.
know what to do during this part too." Well, I'm not gonna tell you that. And
No.
Aaron Carter just keeps looking back at me. He's like, "What am I supposed to do now?" I'm like, "Just go with it," is what I say on live TV to Aaron Carter. And it was perhaps not my favorite thing that I've ever done in life, but it was certainly a thing that happened.
God. I had never heard this story. I had no idea you met Aaron Carter, let alone taught him choreography.
Yeah, we were in the green room and I'm a not super aware of people type of person. So one of the people that was with me was like, "Hey, that's Aaron Carter." And I'm like, "Who?" "It's Aaron Carter. He's a musician, he's a singer. He's Nick Carter's younger brother." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And I looked at him and I was like, "Would you like me to practice my curtsy?" And he chuckled and I moved on with life, as did he.
So did he not update? Well, I guess I should explain this ahead of time or else I'm going to sound crazy. But for a while he was like mildly notorious for frequently tweeting about his horny level. Like, he would literally be like, Aaron Carter horny level. I'm seriously feeling so horny right now. So he didn't give you an update on the horny level?
He did not talk about his level of horniness at that moment, but he did tweet
Okay.
about the experience and drop the link to the video, and that was fun for me.
All right. Well, we'll just have to assume that he was at his usual horny level, which at the time was always high whenever he would tweet about it, interestingly enough. So
Well, good for
anyway,
him.
yeah, no, I mean, lots of people pay a lot of money to reach that horny level. So anyway, I, by the way, was obsessed with Aaron Carter. I was like 10 years old when his big CD came out, Aaron's Party. Knew every word. I loved it. So that would have been a real moment for young Kelly.
Yeah, I think that it was absolutely wasted on me because I was like, I don't get starstruck.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just haven't met anybody that I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Because Aaron Carter seems like a fantastically nice guy. He just
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
somebody that was like, oh my God, I know everything about you. I'm doing Aaron Carter Minute.
Yeah. No, I have to admit I kind of lost track of him after Aaron's Party, and then he only really re-entered my consciousness when people were always talking about his really weird tweets.
Digging back into the film,
If we must.
I mean,
Yeah.
sadly, yes, that is what people are ostensibly listening to us for.
Yeah.
Have you watched any of the alternate takes of the Time Warp?
I think yes. It's been a while though.
So, one of the things that I love very much about this is, and Eric, if you haven't seen them, I hope that that me or Kelly that we remember to send you a link to them because they are very trippy. You see that anytime they're not doing the dancing for the chorus, everybody's just kind of dancing in slow motion, like they're on acid. They're rubbing each other's
Oh
faces and
yeah.
just like really feeling themselves.
I have seen that, yeah. I assumed that was like B-roll they were getting for the acid flashbacks at the end.
But they don't use it for the acid
Well, but
flashbacks
I mean,
either.
I assume they were getting a bunch and then just using some of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Okay.
And the reason that I don't know or think so is because they use some of the alternate take of Riff Raff and Magenta dancing
Right.
later on.
Right.
So my favorite people to look at in the alternate takes of this scene are our friend Fullenwider and Christopher Biggins. They are just living their best lives. They're feeding each other. They're just like rubbing each other's faces. It's very decadent, and I love them.
Yeah, Christopher Biggins is also the Transylvanian that we see eating that thing off the tray.
I think it's a cream puff.
Yeah, like some type of pastry thing. And
I'm surprised that cream-filled eclair, which has such an obvious double meaning, is featured in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I was on the commentary, Richard O'Brien at that moment says, Christopher Biggins eating as usual. And they move on, and he does not explain what he means by this. So I don't know why he would say this about Christopher Biggins, or I don't know, maybe he just really was eating a lot behind the scenes. But that's my Christopher Biggins note for this minute. Apart from, I did in general want to point out all of the different international flags. So are the Transylvanians are they Earth people?
Well, I know that in the next minute we're going to get a better look at the food on the table. And from that, I really do have the impression that they are supposed to be from Earth. When they leave after Rocky is created, they just leave.
Right.
They don't try and stay in the castle so that they can go back to Transylvania. I think that they're just like alien enthusiasts,
Okay.
which aren't we all?
Yeah, I'm surprised that Frank would entertain Earth people at his castle, but I guess it makes sense.
He's just down to fuck.
Yeah, that's true. And he was living for the attention, and they were living for him. So
But those were all my notes.
okay, well, I had a couple. When right before Magenta starts doing her solo, when they're saying let's do the time warp again, Janet faints, and I was just wondering, why do you think Janet faints? Is she just so taken aback by everything and it just doesn't fully hit her until that moment? Or is it...
To me, that... Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. The other option I was going to offer was Magenta kind of does something in her face that I've seen that being attributed to why she passes out, but to me it doesn't seem that related based on the way, like, the reaction times.
Yeah, to me, it kind of calls back to what I said in the last minute, that they're thinking, what the hell have we gotten into entering this house? That it started out just a little wacky with this weird maid and butler, and now they're in this room surrounded by 20 weirdos, and the doors behind them have been closed, and maybe she's not exactly sure, even if she can get those doors open, how to get to the front door and get out, and she's just like, oh boy, my life really is... I'm in deep shit.
That kind of is my take on it too. What do you think, Leandra?
Well, I think that definitely checks out because they're literally chased into this room. Riff and Magenta, you see, literally kick the doors open, and they just come spilling into this room and see all of this stuff. And then if you're looking behind the action, you see that Riv and Magenta are closing the doors and locking them behind them. This is definitely something that would cause a fair amount of anxiety for, I think, any person.
Mm-hmm.
And Janet is certainly any person.
Yeah.
Of course, you could always just say that she's just gone on a very long walk, and she's very tired and she's got low blood sugar. I just don't think that that's likely.
No, I do too. The timing is strange because I think if she were going to faint from shock, I would think it would happen when they first throw open the doors. But it's better timing right there for the song and the shot.
Yeah, and it's very tropey for musicals to have somebody clutching their pearls or fainting and going, I can't believe that this thing is happening.
Absolutely.
The youths are going crazy.
And then I know that you don't want to go too into detail about every Transylvanian, but since we've got Eric here, I was just going to ask, Leandra's favorite Transylvanian, as we've discussed on the show, is Fran Fullenwider.
I love her.
The bigger woman, and mine is Peggy Ledger, the old one. I was just wondering if you have a favorite, Eric.
Is the one you're talking about the one with like the big frizzy hair?
That's Fran Fullenwider, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, she's the one that is the most memorable to me. She's the one that I most remember from the times that I've seen this movie. She really stands out to me. Yeah. And then I wonder if the other one is the one that you're talking about, Kelly. Is she really short?
Yeah, she's a tiny woman with purplish hair.
Yes. Yeah. To me, that's the other character that really stands out to me also. Yeah, absolutely. Those are the two most memorable ones to me as well.
That's so funny, because usually everybody's got a different answer for that. Yeah, when I dress as a Transylvanian, I dress as Peggy.
Now, Eric, are you talking about the old lady or the actual person who is like substantially shorter than everybody else?
I'm talking about the person that's substantially shorter than everybody else.
Oh, you're talking about like the little person?
Yeah.
She's a little person, right?
That is Sadie Corey.
Oh, okay.
And I'll probably repeat this because, as I've said, I forget things pretty quickly. But my notes have that she is 4'10". She's a cabaret performer, and she also appeared as an Ewok in Return of the Jedi.
Nice.
She died in 2007 at age 91.
So actually, Peggy Ledger was only 1 inch taller than her, though.
Yeah.
Peggy Ledger.
Now, I will say that Sadie is also, I don't think, wearing heels.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Peggy Ledger is.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's so funny that she's thought of as the short one, but really it's only a 1 inch difference. But yeah, I mean, Peggy is wearing heels.
I'm amused. She's the same height as my mom.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons that she stood out to me as the one I wanted to dress as is because I myself am not quite that short, but I am only 5'3". So usually in a crowd, I'm one of the shorter ones. But Yeah, love her. I mean, I love them all. They're all bringing something different. Of course, we love Perry Bedden. We name drop him possibly more than anybody else on the show.
Yeah, don't do a drinking game with the name Perry Bedden involved. You will get alcohol poisoning.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, if we don't have any, did you have any other notes, Eric?
I had a couple more.
Okay.
I thought one of them with the criminologist jumping in, not literally jumping in, but the song literally stopping and the criminologist taking the time, pull down the banner, say what the first step is.
Mhm.
If that decision to do that in the movie is not handled well, you could really break the flow of a song that has just started to really kick in. The awesome guitar riff is going. You've got these wacky lyrics. The song is really starting to get exciting, and then suddenly the music just stops. And if it's not handled well, it could really fall flat. But it's perfectly done. It doesn't kill the song at all. The song jumps right back up. They go back to him again. And again, it doesn't stop the song. It really fits absolutely perfectly well. I think it was very well done the way they did it. And because it could have gone wrong.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that brings it to such an extra level of like zaniness too.
Yeah.
And makes it feel like it really is like a well-known dance that they always do in Transylvanian conventions,
I think that my favorite thing about that is every time we head into the criminologist's office, I find another just random thing that I hadn't noticed before, and this time it's right next to the time warp steps is this hilarious like doll or puppet, or maybe it's even a nutcracker, just to the right of the time warp steps, and it looks so out of place, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is he says it's just a jump to the left, and then they show the dancers and half of them jump to the right. Only the right side of the screen is jumping to the left, but the right side of the screen is jumping to the right.
When I'm teaching this choreography, this is one of the ones where I go, it's just a jump to the front.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is they're all turning so that they're facing the same way.
Yeah. And they at some point like kind of you have to, when you're doing it on stage, you have to get into that circle formation, so everybody has to basically do a jump or two so that they can all get into the circle. Yeah.
And this first pelvic thrust is a very slow pelvic thrust. It's very deliberate and somewhat off-putting.
Well, going back to the junior high school dances where I first learned this song, this is probably inappropriate for junior high school kids to do, but it was the 80s when this part of the song would come on, and I don't, if this is part of the live show, then I don't know since I haven't gone, but we would all chant group sex, as we all did the pelvic thrust.
I've never heard that at the show, but we did that at my dances too.
So I've heard it at lots of shows.
Okay,
yeah.
So I guess maybe it came from the show. I have no idea. But yeah, it's so funny that these things get passed, I think, just through just oral history.
And really, just to get a little sentimental, that's really why we do Rocky Horror Minute, so that we have a nice recording of the oral history of Rocky Horror before it leaves everybody's brains.
Is something happening? Do you know about it?
No, I just have a terrible memory.
Oh, right, yeah.
Remember me.
Yeah. It's really fun for me to go through and try and catalog all the callbacks that we know together, because that's not something I've ever tried to do. It's usually just whatever one comes to me in the moment that I remember while I'm watching. So it's nice to actually put some thought into it. And this would be a great time to talk about callbacks. I don't actually have that many for this minute. You'd think I would have more, but I don't. Maybe Leandra has a bunch more. But after the void will be calling, a very old one that is always said is everybody chants, bring more beer. Like, that's what the void's calling to tell you, I guess. And then, of course, like with doing the time warp itself, that's not a callback, but it is an audience participation moment that is very important. But that's what I have. Do you have any others, Leandra?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
So the reason that there aren't a lot of callbacks for this is because the callback is everybody get up and do the time warp. We're telling you how to do it right now.
Yeah.
So you have people going like, get the fuck up.
Yeah.
And that's really the callback, and you're really encouraging everybody to stand up and participate.
Yeah.
And
That's
since they're
something
doing it,
even the virgins do. You really get them on board with that if you can.
and let me tell you, there's nothing more sad than trying to get an audience to participate in the Rocky Horror Picture Show and having them go, no, we're good.
Yeah. Sometimes the crowd is not feeling you. It doesn't happen that often. I mean, we've had crowds of 6 people literally who were having a great time, so it was great. But yeah, sometimes people just aren't really ready for it.
You will see more callbacks when people aren't dancing, because you kind of can't walk and chew gum at the same time. You can't do callbacks and then learn a dance.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. During that thing, all I hear from the audience is, get the fuck up. Just do it. Come on, get up. It's on the screen. The instructions are on the screen. How stupid would you have to be to not be able to do it? You know, that kind of thing.
There are a couple of tried and true things, like when you get to the criminologist the first time, there's that semi-pregnant pause. I'd say like first trimester pregnant. And you go, how the fuck do we do this again? And then he goes, it's just a jump to the left.
Yeah.
I've heard occasionally people say, put your hands on your tits or someone else's.
Yeah.
And that's cute. I don't think that it's necessary or like all that impactful, but I don't think that many of these are built in there for their impact or their usefulness to the plot.
Right. So yeah, okay, I guess it wasn't just me. It is a light callback minute.
It is.
So, unless anyone has anything else, that's what I had.
I guess you know what that means. We're going to go ahead and end it the same way that we end all of our episodes, with now. You don't have to go home, but you can't figure it, so get the fuck out.
That was great! Yeah!
I got there.